Welcome to the RealPlex Business Exchange platform, where small business owners can connect to real investors right there at your fingertips. Hi, welcome. My name is Gabriel Puente, the founder of the RealPlex Business Exchange. Look, every business owner deserves to know what their company is worth and how to prepare for a successful transition. That's why I recommend the RealPlex Business Exchange. Now, it's a simple, affordable platform to help you understand what your valuation is. And for today's podcast, we have Abby Young. She's our CPA, our trusted advisor on the platform. Abby, welcome.
Thank you.
So Abby, just to kick things off, can you share a little bit about your background? Tell us about your experience as a CPA.
My name's Abby Young, and I'm a local CPA here in McAllen, Texas. I went to the University of Texas at Austin.
Hook 'em.
And I have a public accounting firm here in McAllen. My focus of my practice is to help starting and existing businesses to grow and to meet their goals that they're looking for.
Yeah. Abby, when a business owner first comes to you and says, hey, I'm thinking about the next stage, I think I'm ready to sell. What are some things that you look at to understand where they are and how to get them to that next stage?
So some of the really important things are all those things that you don't want to do every day. Really understand your financial statements, and you really need about 3 to 5 years before you sell your company so that you have time to strengthen the balance sheet and then be able to have the business be as marketable as possible, and so that you get the most value for it.
Yeah. There's a lot of business owners that probably are coming to you at the later stage, right? Either they're burned out, there's a crisis. Now, even before thinking about an exit, from your perspective, how early should owners start planning for a sell? And, what does early planning actually look like?
I would say the most important thing is that, those financial statements are what somebody's going to value your business on. Sure, that's not your client list. I have these clients that I've had for 25 years, and they only, and for sure they're going to come and stay with you. But you need to have that consistent balance sheet history. I hate to say it, but always sort of be ready to sell. Because by the time a crisis happens, you're kind of in emergency mode, and then you're going to sacrifice value with price.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of that in some of the platforms that are already out there. There's a lot of failed businesses, a lot of consignment. That's what I do love about the platform. It's very discreet. People actually have their information out there. It's not for everybody to see, because I understand that also discretion is very important for these business owners, because if they have their information out there for the public to see, that can also potentially tank their value, because of potential competitors, things of that nature. So what are some common financial red flags that you see when reviewing a business that wants to go to market, and how can owners maybe potentially fix those problems before listing?
So the top 3 things I would say is, nobody wants to pay tax, right? So most of the time business owners put a lot of their personal expenses in their financial statements, whether it's purchasing the boat or having everyone on their family on the payroll, or putting padding with a bunch of expenses. Every trip is in there. So yeah, of course those are items that people are normally deductible and don't want to pay tax on, but those really erode the value, because you can't really strip those out when somebody's coming to look at and evaluate your financial statements. They're looking for that 3-year history. They're looking for what kind of net income does it produce without anything in it. If you weren't there, how much would it produce? But some of the transitions it's important that you can kind of have a hybrid where the owner stays on and you can continue to receive value from your company. So there's ways to get there.
So, talk about that. Owners typically, especially in the small business realm, they personal expenses, they mix with business expenses. Now, how does that impact their valuation? And are there some things and steps that they can take in order to clean that up?
Yes, definitely always try to keep your business and the actual business expenses that are attributed to the business in the business. And then on your personal credit cards or checking account, you're better off only keeping those to personal. But it's it's difficult because people pay where their credit cards are, pay where the money is. So it's difficult to separate those, but if you can just be really vigilant about doing that, then when you go to present your financial statements, it's not trying to strip off every lunch that you took with business clients.
Yeah, because I feel like during the due diligence process, those are discretionary expenses that potentially could be pulled out. But from your experience, it would be a lot cleaner and a lot smoother transition if those things are in place. Going to this question, what, in your experience, talk about smooth transitions from painful ones. Now, are there patterns that you see in deals that get, either whenever, how do I put this? That either the deals that go well compared to the deals that fall apart? Like, what are some common, missteps that you see the small business owners make?
So the best advice that I could give is that you have your one team of trusted advisors from day one for forever. But you need to go to all of your trusted advisors, your insurance person, your broker, your financial person, your CPA, and your lawyer, and be like, okay, look, this is what I want to do. What do you think what's the best ways we can do it? I had a transition that they basically had a letter of intent signed by November 30th, and the entire deal was closed by December 31st because the financial statements were clean, the buyer understood, there wasn't a lot of back and forth. You don't want to put things in your financial statements that create more questions or uncertainty. So that's why you don't want to have all your personal expenses dumped in your financial statement, because you're going to be telling them, oh, well, that you don't need that one. And it just creates another question that it erodes your value.
Speaking of the financial statements, so what are some financial reports or documents that every business owner should have at the ready to help them get organized? And how far back should they be looking at it?
In my opinion, I think 3 to 5 years of profit and loss statements, balance sheet, and then your tax returns. Those are really the ones that they want to look at. On businesses that have inventory, they want to see the inventory value and the accounts receivable, the payables. You want to make sure that your financial statements are really current. And then if there's you don't want to have any disputes on there, like, oh, I'm not paying that guy, or this inventory's dead, and oh yeah, you're going to buy a bunch of inventory you don't need.
Yeah, so a lot of business owners worry about taxes when they sell. At a high level, how do you help them structure a sale in a way that is tax efficient, and what do they often overlook?
The way that assets are broken down when you sell a business is like the money card. That is the game change. Like, what you want to get, if you're selling a bunch of fixed assets, the buyer is going to want a bunch of value placed on your real property, and the seller is going to want a bunch of the value based on the goodwill. One, for the tax treatment, because on fixed assets, you're stuck with recapture, which is taxed at ordinary income rates. So that's 30% and up. And then goodwill is taxed at capital gain rates. So that's at the 15 to 20% rate. So it's a huge savings if you're trying to sell $1 million business, and you're going to get the gain taxed at 15% versus 30%. It's a huge difference. So there needs to be some time for negotiating with the buyer and the seller to make sure that's structured correctly. And the other thing is that if the business has real property, like they own their office building or they own clinics or anything like that, you want to make sure that that's in a separate LLC. So that either the business could just be sold with just the business, the operating company, or the business could be sold with the real estate, or they could rent from you. So you want that flexibility before you go to sell.
Can you share some examples of some scenarios where you've seen a smooth transition, from the seller selling off the organization, even in the service model where they've sold it to some owners and operators in your experience?
So the service business is difficult to sell because usually the owner operator is the business. And like in a case in my office, right? There's 2 CPAs, right? And if we're not there to answer the questions, it's hard to define the value. But I've had a service business that sold a year ago, and the way they did the transition was, it was perfect. It was basically the key managing partners. They stayed on for a couple of years to transition the business over to the upcoming partners. And then they stayed on another 2 years just to make sure that everything was smooth and that everybody was comfortable, and they would show up at meetings and answer calls when needed. And it took a little bit of time, but because they had that 5 years, there wasn't really any attrition. So there wasn't like this huge parting of the ways that people left. The business retained its value. The upcoming partners weren't stuck with trying to go fill in holes of income that they hadn't had.
How do you prepare the business owners emotionally, for this transition? Because a lot of times they may see their value that they put in, it seems a lot more compared to somebody who's looking to buy it and just strictly looking at the numbers.
That's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard because for the business owner, they see it as this is my entire life. I didn't take family vacations. I put all my kids through college for this business. What do you mean you don't think it's worth it? It's their livelihood. So that's tough. But I think if they're planning and they know what they're looking towards, and it's not some kind of emergency situation, the value of the business, and that they'll help the transition, the value is, I would say it's a huge difference in the value. It's like fire sale value versus, 80 to 90% of your value. Yeah. But if your goal is that you want to go into the next stage and you want to have more time more time to do whatever you want, you got to be ready to be flexible and make that transition smooth. The people who are committed to make the transition smooth make the deal. Yeah. So it's about the seller's attitude.
Yeah, it sounds to me like, one, you got to be prepared way in advance. Know that if 10 years, maybe less, but start thinking about it now. And also, if there's somebody out there willing to make a deal, deals will happen.
Oh yeah, you don't want to pass on a good deal either. That's the other thing, is that when somebody comes and a buyer's ready, you want to be ready too. Yeah. Their first offer could be your best offer. You don't want to miss out on that best offer.
2 more questions. Now, if a business owner is listening right now, they're maybe who are not ready to sell today, but they may be in the next 5 years, what are top 3 actions they can take right now to set themselves up for a better exit?
For one, know your business. So know your expenses, know what really it costs to run that business. And then, everybody knows that there's something that you're probably a little lazy on, right? Myself, everyone, right? Myself included for sure. We all know that there's something you probably should clean that up, and take the time to do the cleanup. Invest in yourself, right? So that would be one. Know your business, know your expenses, really understand before you sign your tax returns and all that stuff, make sure that you know what those say and that it looks like what you expect it to be. 3, I like systems. I sometimes don't like systems, but I like systems in that it generates that anybody can come in if something were to happen and you weren't able to do your job, somebody can come sit down with a little bit of, orienting, getting yourself oriented, and then start and just keep everything rolling. And I like empowering your team so that even I've had some businesses where the front desk person knows absolutely every client, and that is the person that makes the transition go smooth because everybody comes back to talk to the person in the front. Yeah. And that those gatekeeper, make sure your team is solid. So make sure you have trusted advisors. That's 4.
Systems,
good team. Know your business, keep your business organized and clean, even though nobody wants to. Yeah. It's the last thing we want to do when you're tired, and it's the last thing, but just take the time.
Yeah. Yeah, systems are extremely important. Nobody wants to come in and buy a problem, right? So, if there's systems in place in your business, definitely, like you had mentioned, invest in it, find it. And I would even say a 4th thing if you were to ask me, marketing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, make sure you put your information out. It's just going to increase your value. It seems counterintuitive. If you're thinking about selling, you need to advertise. Because the more that they see you out there, the more value you may be putting into your company.
Oh, that's such a good one.
So finally, if someone is hearing this and I'm thinking, I have no idea where to start, what is the best first step they can take with a CPA like yourself? And how can a platform like RealPlex Business Exchange fit into that journey?
I will run your last 3 years tax returns, right now we're late in the year. So run the financial statements that you have so far for this year. Make sure you're up to date. Keep them up to date. And we can, I help counsel businesses to strengthen that balance sheet over time. And it is a process. It's not something that's quick. The other thing is you want to start funding all the tax deferral accounts, which that's probably a more complicated conversation, but there's certain 401ks you want to start fund. You want to fund certain investments so that when you sell your business, you can pull those out of the business without a tax consequence. What else would I say? And then and then just really keep your business always on the growth. Don't I wouldn't stop with the gas. I would keep the gas on.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. A lot of value. If y'all don't know, come to RealPlexBusinessExchange.com, RealPlexBizX.com. Abby Young is one of the trusted advisors within the region that we're kicking this platform on. And so thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
You're watching this podcast today. We have our trusted advisors that are going to be giving information, resources, and insights to our small businesses that are on the platform.